up to the bend, and there was not the sign of a boat. I stood straining my eyes, expected to see a boat come round every moment, when I heard the cry again, and this time it sounded not 50 yards upstream. I could not make it out at all, so I shouted out loud as I could, "Who are you? What's the matter?" But there was no answer, and then suddenly, the next instant, close below me, from inside the lock this time, just here, came a shout, piercing, shrill, and loud. "Open the lock! Quick, quick! Open the lock!" I tell you, sir, my heart seemed to stand dead still, and I nearly fell back over the bridge. I wheeled round sharp, but there was nothing in the lock, that I'll swear to my dying day, for I could see all over it, and nothing could have got in there without passing me. The moon was quite bright, and I could see all round it. Without knowing what I was doing, I rushed down like mad to the lower gates, and began to wind up one of the sluices, and then I stood there and waited, but nothing came. As the lock emptied, I looked down, but there was no sign of anything anywhere. So I let down the sluice without opening the gates, and then filled up the lock again. I stood by the post, hardly daring to move, when, about 5:30, thank God, I heard the whistle of a tug, and after seeing her through, it was broad daylight. That's the whole story, sir. How I'm going to live through the night again, I don't know. It was a spirit if ever there was one in the world. It's a warning to me, sir, and what's going to happen, I don't know. Well, Jimmy, I answered, it's certainly a most extraordinary story, and if I didn't know you as well as I do, I should say you had taken something more than a smoke before you turned in last night. I never touch a drop, sir, except when I go into Farley and have a glass of beer, but I have not been there for more than a week now. I confess that Jimmy's story left a most unpleasant impression on me. I had little doubt that the whole thing was some strange subjective hallucination, but for a weird and ghostly experience, it certainly beat most of the tales I had ever heard. I thought for a moment. It was now quite dark, and I felt little inclined to go on to Wootton. My keenest interests were awakened. "Look here," I said, "what do you say if I stay here tonight? Can you give me a shakedown of any sort?" "That I will, sir, and right gladly, and thank God if you will but stay with me. If I was alone here again and heard that voice, I believe it would kill me. I'll tie up your boat outside and bring your things in, and then we'll have supper. I'll feel a new man with you staying here, sir." In a few minutes we were both inside old Jimmy's cosy quarters. His whole bearing seemed to have changed suddenly, and he ran about with alacrity, getting supper ready, and seeming quite like himself again. During the whole evening he kept harping at intervals on the subject of the mysterious voice, but we heard no sound whatever, and I felt more and more certain that the whole thing was due to hallucination on the part of the old man. At 11 o'clock a skiff came up through the lock, and almost immediately afterwards I bade Jimmy good night, and went into the little room he had prepared for me. End of Section 5. Part 1 of Chapter 4.